everyone. Welcome to the 2023 WonderCon in Anaheim, California. I'm Kambra Potter for That's My Entertainment, and we are about to leap in to some interviews with the cast and crew of the NBC Reboot, Quantum Leap.
Okay, shall we go around?
Yeah.
Who wants to start?
Okay, I'll start first. Okay, so this was from Mason. Sorry, I got something in my eye.
That's okay. I forgive you.
Okay, so yeah, you're non-binary, and your character is non-binary. So was that always set for the character at the beginning, or did they kind of like shift things around to more fit you as a person?
I think they came to me because they always wanted to find someone who was non-binary or gender non-conforming. Like, it was written that Ian explicitly was a non-binary character when they approached me about it, and I was like very thrilled because I've watched a major shift just in the last 5 years of roles that are like actually explicitly, described one way that really were not there when I was, in the industry 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So it was really exciting for me to kind of get to see myself reflected in a character that's, granted, the show itself exists in a sci-fi world, but the character is a very like normalized, individual. It's not like I'm not playing, an anthropomorphic personification of something again. Like
there was that trans episode, Let Them Play.
Yeah.
That was obviously very relatable for people.
Yes.
Within
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah. So it's really cool. I think that the all the creatives and the writers have a really nice understanding of the humanity of trans individuals, and they're very dedicated to trying to just like allow me to exist and breathe in a space that like normally we're not invited to take up space in, and so it's very cool.
That's cool.
Hi, I'm Will.
Hi, Will.
My question's for both of you. Narissa. Start with you if you'd like.
Sure.
I guess just going back to square one. What was it about Quantum Leap that sort of first drew you to the project? Like, how did it all start for you?
Yeah, I mean, I love to let people know that I used to watch the original. I watched the original show when it was originally airing with my dad. It was kind of something we did together. So when I got the audition for this, I was pretty excited. And then when I booked it, I mean, I just knew I was going to earn extra brownie points with my dad. I've got a built-in audience of one. Do you know what I mean? Like, for sure. He continues to watch the show, of course. And it's just been really fun, I think, to take part in a continuation of a show that I watched as a kid and that I kind of like thought about and dreamt up, and what would you do, and I think it's just I got a little bit nervous about wanting to be able to serve the show, honor the original, but still be able to kind of do my own thing and find my space within the continuation of it. And I think I'm just thrilled with the rhythm that we found, with the chemistry that we found as a cast, and where the storylines are going.
Cool. And what about you? I know you're sort of talking about it, but did you watch the original?
I did, yeah.
Cool.
I wasn't as religious about it. So when the show came around as an opportunity, it definitely gave me a chance to dive back in. But I just love the genre, I've always loved, I feel like queer people specifically love sci-fi because it's very much so like often represents this sort of, whether it's utopian or dystopian, but like these ideas of like individuality that often is not necessarily as explored in other genres. And I think that's why queer people kind of like flock to horror and to sci-fi. And so it's, I was very lucky that my career has led me in this direction where I've got to do, Cowboy Bebop and Sandman and now this. And I feel like these are the things I grew up loving and wanting to be a part of when I was growing up, fantasy pieces and sci-fi pieces. So I'm just, yeah, it's the best. And yeah, exactly. So I'm just I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
I just want to say I saw you as Hedwig.
Oh,
so
amazing.
It's really lovely to meet you.
That's so cool.
Such a good show. But you were mentioning your other projects that you've done, and you've said that Hedwig was meaningful because you got to present yourself, but to see yourself reflected in media. Do you think that now that you're on this network show and you've done these Netflix things, do you feel extra pressure to be that example for other people?
No, not at all. Often the only reason that I think about it or remember is usually in the day-to-day. It's usually in the negative. Like it's amazing because like so many people will send astoundingly wonderful messages, and like parents and kids and just people who are who feel very represented and feel very seen, and that's unbelievably moving. But like as an actor, I'm never necessarily thinking about it unless the storyline is diving into topics that I feel haven't necessarily been fairly represented in media. So when we did, like the trans episode, obviously we were all thinking about, what does it mean to, like, what tropes do you want to avoid? What things have we disliked about trans representation in television in the past? And how do we change, the landscape of what that looks like for people in the future? So those are often the times that I think about it. But yeah, in terms of like, of Hedwig and sort of solidifying ideas about my identity. Like representation is transformational, and oftentimes we aren't given access to seeing ourselves in your marginalized identity because it's not deemed palatable or it's not deemed, sellable in many ways. And in reality, like the human experience is universal. So like if you can get past these ideas that like gender or race or sexuality kind of should bar you from being able to empathize with an individual, then you should be able to like engage in all kinds of media and not feel, completely barred from it just because marginalized voices are invited to the table. And I think that this show is really taking that headstrong. I mean, our cast is unbelievably diverse in a way that, probably would not be true if the show was revived 15 years ago or so, or 10 years ago. So it's, I'm very excited for all of us to be able to continue to shape the world as we see it. These are the people that I see at work, not just because like we're all hired to be together, but also because that's what the world kind of looks like everywhere else that I go. So it's nice that it's an extended reflection of reality for a lot of us. Yeah.
So I have kind of a fun question for you both.
Okay.
If you could time travel in real life to past or past or future, where would you go? What would be the era that you'd love to experience? Do you want me to go first?
I do.
Okay.
I need to think.
I know. This question always catches me off guard. I don't know why. I should just like come up with an answer, But I think because there's so many choices. Right. But I think the 20s would be really fun for me. I think just kind of a lot of different places you went, like in Europe, I think would be interesting. I think in the States, but during COVID, I read my great-grandmother's autobiography, and in the 20s, she, as a Korean woman in Korea, came over to the States and went to school. She went to Wesleyan, I think, to get her undergrad, and then she went to Columbia to get her master's. In the 1920s, not even as a Korean American, as a Korean woman, came to another country and got some degrees, and then traveled the world speaking, and I never met her. She doesn't need my help in terms of like me trying to fix anything for her, but I think I never met her in person. She passed away before I was born. I think it would be amazing to kind of just witness how she operated because she was such an accomplished person, and I got a little of that blood coursing through my veins. I just get a little more inspiration from her. Yes, it's amazing, right? Yeah.
That's very cool. It's the first time I've heard that story, so that's good. You know what? 1920s would be really fun for me too. I feel like I would go to 1920s Berlin.
Yes.
Because either that or like New York or something. Because the late 20s and early 30s, like right around Prohibition time, that was when queer people were sort of like at the height of popularity, and a lot of people don't really talk about the history of it. But that time period is commonly referred to as the pansy craze, because it was when pansy performers and drag performers and female impersonators and all kinds of queer artists were like some of the highest paid performers in both underground clubs and, like, oddly enough, on Broadway. One of the highest paid performers in the early 30s was a female impersonator that was like just selling out crowds. So I think it'd be really fun to experience the positive part of that, because then right after it came like the Hays Code and all of these sort of massive wave of anti-trans legislation, like kind of like what we're seeing in our country now. And I don't think I would want to be there for that because we're already living in our version of it. But yeah, it'd be cool to go back to the 20s.
We could meet up.
Yeah, we would hang.
We could get brunch.
Yeah. Maybe they had avocado toast back then. Who knows?
I do have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
So you're on this show right now. It sounds like it's kind of a dream for both of you, but where do you guys see yourselves going as far as what genres and would you want to stay in television or go towards film? Like, where do you want to be? Like, what would be your dream role or your dream genre?
I don't know, do you have one for this?
I mean, I can go, yeah. I think I don't have any one particular thing, but I think what I would love to do, I love comedy, and I think multicam is really fun to do. I've had a little taste of it, and it's just such a fun amalgamation of like TV and theater because you get that energy from the live audience, and multi is just it has a different rhythm, a musicality to it that I really enjoyed in the one experience I had. But I do think that that I would love to do some character drama. I think during our break. Because I think I mean, and this is more of a strategic point of view and less of a dream point of view. But in the breaks that we have, like, there's just enough time to maybe do like a film. And I think being able to, I think with the more and more writers, filmmakers, directors, DPs, a wider representation of people these days on the other side, of the camera. I think it just provides more and more opportunity for somebody like me to be able to play a character that I feel like is an aspect of me that's multidimensional, and that I feel like some of these young Asian writers are writing for me and they don't even know me, and I think I would really love to be able to kind of explore that some.
Yeah, I've been very lucky that I've gotten across a lot of those things off of my list in terms of like theater dreams and television dreams and that sort of thing. I would want to do more film, and I've always wanted to do a rom-com because I just grew up, on that kind of stuff. So I think that would be it'd be really fun to do like another series that isn't sci-fi or fantasy, that is either a comedy or not, and a rom-com. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. That's all the time we have at this table.
Well, thank you all.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to meet you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, I'm
Ernie
looking.
Hudson, man, like, you're good. Well, okay, so questions for you. So your character Magic has a connection to Sam Beckett.
Yeah.
Did you know that was going to be within your character before you signed on?
Yeah, I knew it before I signed on. I didn't know it when they first approached me but obviously I looked into, and I remember the episode. I didn't realize that was the character, but once I kind of, and part of that whole preparing the character, doing what little research you can, but how you move that story forward, what happens to this guy, what's happening to him now, and how it impacts positive and negative, all of that was really a large part of why I really wanted to do it, because I think it's very, very exciting that, what would that be like? We're talking about time, we're talking about, so all those, and his commitment to this team to get Sam back, to make sure this program works, but in the meantime, the sacrifice on your own personal life, and it takes its toll because everyone doesn't understand why it's so important. So all those things just makes it a really fun character to try to live through.
Yeah, I didn't make that connection until that episode, because I used to watch the Quantum Leap show. I'm sorry, the other one, and I didn't make that connection until I saw that episode, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah,
Pretty awesome,
I think we, to see, because, we, every week, especially with the original, we leap in someone else, but what happens to these people once that, you've sort of turned their world around and now they're back to live with it. So that's that's part of the excitement of the show.
Hello, I'm Will. Nice to
Hi,
meet
Will.
you. Having done sci-fi before, did that play a part in you wanting to join Quantum Leap?
Well, I think it's that having done sci-fi before, but also at this stage of my life, because I've been doing this for 50, almost 60 years. And it comes to a point where you kind of go, this is the stuff that I want to do. You always say if the money's right, then hey, but the stuff you really want to do, and this is part of that. To be part of a show that crosses generations, to be part of a show that gives us pause to think, to consider our choices that we're making that are world changing, even though we don't realize that. Something that I feel is meaningful, as opposed to just entertaining or just why am I doing it? So this is really a show that I wanted to be a part of. And I remember the impact it had on me and my kids when they were small, and we'd watch the original show and we'd talk about the different lives. But in this one, I realized it's the different times too. Now that I'm old enough to see how times do shift and change, and so yeah, it was really exciting.
Deborah, bringing such a classic show back to life, has the process of making this new show, have there been particular challenges that you don't normally face because the show 30 years in the making?
It was 30 years in the making. First, I have to tell some dirt. Ernie and I met on a science fiction movie in the 80s.
That's right, yeah.
Called
Yeah.
Space Hunter.
Space Hunter, yeah.
Adventures in the Forbidden Zone.
Yeah, Space Hunter.
So we go way back.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
To answer your question, I think that we were unique. We were a unicorn back in 89. And the reality was they didn't know what to do with us. And if you watch the show faithfully, you didn't know what night it was coming on, you didn't know what time it was coming on, because they moved us constantly because the audience kept following us. It was a true sci-fi audience. They got it from the beginning. But I remember even going into Brandon Tartikoff, Don Belisario and I went into Brandon Tartikoff and pitched the idea, and Brandon went, there's something really kind of cool about this. Come back next week, let me think about it. We went back three times to pitch this show, and he said, I can't not do this show, but I think it's ahead of its time. And to have a visionary see what it was and to take the chance with us was a big deal. We didn't have a lot of money. We couldn't be in the present. I'm very jealous of the new show because they can be in the present. If you ever watched the show and saw images of our imaging chamber or our, we never really went into the waiting room. But we would always write, not always, we would occasionally write, I remember writing an episode where it was a three-parter. And in the second part, Sam leapt in to a woman that he fell in love with. And in the third part, he leapt into a man defending her in a court case. And he said, but you never got married. And she had a child, which was the whole thing of him leaving Prodigy behind. He said, whatever happened to him? She said he all of a sudden decided he had been taken by aliens and he moved to Hollywood to become a writer. So we tried to drop in things like that, but we were limited in the time. We were ahead of our time, but it was so moving to the audience, and I'm so grateful. It's one of the reasons that I have stayed as close to this new show, to make sure that it had the heart, that there was history, that there was humor, but most of all that there was hope. And it's missing from just about everything else on TV. So I think we brought something back at the right time.
You gotta end it with that.
Thank you very much. Cling.
I have a question about deciding to bring it back because it comes with its own loyal fan base that we grew up with it. Washington families, you are no stranger to a serious loyal fan base and vocal fan bases. Were there any concerns coming into the reboot of like how do we address this, or was it kind of approaches like we're gonna make this and we'll hear from them later, or just kind of how did you factor in that variety of the internet fandom presence?
Well, some Quantum Leap history. When we first did the show, we discovered our fans in chat rooms. It was the beginning of the internet. And we could go and listen to them talk after the show about the show. So we started all these things that are now Twitter and everything else. Most people don't know that. We were very interactive even at that time. Bringing the show back, everybody was very worried about it, which is probably why it took 30 years to come forward. I mean, there were other things that Universal sold itself off and the rights got all messed up, that kind of stuff. But again, I say, the world right now needs hope. Quantum Leap brings it. You're entertained, but you also, somebody lays in front of you a situation where you have to think. So it's a smart show, and it's an emotional show, and we've got incredible actors to tell these incredible stories.
And I'm emotional.
And you should be. So I think the timing is in a weird way right. That we don't need hope now. If we don't get hope now.
Strange time.
And this is a chance to watch a show that talks about subjects that are relevant, that you can turn around to the person next to you or at the office in the water cooler, and you can say, wow, did you watch Quantum Leap last night? They were dealing with, a trans athlete. Well, that's certainly in the news today. And you get to talk about it from a whole other perspective that's non-threatening. Because, hey, it's entertainment. So we're really blessed to have a show that has this platform. You're welcome.
So I have kind of a fun question for you both. It might be a little bit of a hard one, but if you could time travel in real life, where would you go? Past or future? Any era? Where would be an era that you'd want to experience?
Well, considering American history,
I know
Could be
you're going.
futuristic.
Yeah, I'm part of that.
hard to kind of, but, of course, you time travel, I guess it doesn't mean you necessarily be in any particular, to be, how would it be to be a woman in 17, well, considering American history. No. But I've always been this is just on a personal level, I've always been fascinated with how my mom and dad got together because when I was born, she died a couple months after and I never knew him. But I knew they got together. So it's like a big mystery in my, how would that have been? What did that look like? So I wouldn't want to leap in either one of them, but maybe a friend who knew them to see how I somehow got here. I know I'm definitely here, but that's just my own little personal history. Yeah.
Do you have any era that you think would be fun to visit?
God,
I
so
know
many.
it's
It's a tough one for a writer. Truthfully, I want to go to the future to see what we're doing now, to take back the information, to hear, to say, okay, dudes, we gotta make this work out, or we get it right. It's funny because when my kids were young, I wrote a series of science fiction books about Earth in the not-too-distant future, and I wanted them to know that it was after 9/11, and I remember my daughter, who must have been, 9 or something, we all came out with candles to stand on the porch, and all the neighbors came out. And my daughter came out and looked around, and she said, I will never know the freedom you have known your whole life. And it broke my heart. And then I realized I wanted to write stories to empower kids, to say you can make a difference. don't feel like just this, because the world is the way that it is, you can't. So I wrote this Vision Quest series, and it was really about a unified Earth. We got it together. We can do that. And so we couldn't afford to go to the future in our version. I don't know that we will in this one necessarily go far enough into the future to see the difference or to see various versions of it, because it hasn't happened yet. But I think that as a storyteller, and then I want to go way, way back, like pre-Egyptian times, to find out why time keeps starting over. Something happened before 10,000 years ago where I think we had a whole other civilization or aliens or something. So it's all there. It's whatever you imagine it to be. I think you have a connection to it. So
Well, if
way,
we go
way
in the
back.
future, there's going to be zombies, I know.
Just not the mushroom ones that were on HBO recently. Those creep me out big time.
So this is for, sorry, for Deborah. So you had a couple of characters from the original show, show up. Are there any other characters that Sam had affected in the original show that might show up in this series?
Hope so. Yeah. And I'm also hopeful that, and I say this all the time, this is just the beginning of Quantum Leap. It's back. It's doing well thanks to people like you. You've reached out and you've found a bigger, newer audience. I don't see why we can't do everything that Star Trek has done. 9 series, 9 movies, video games. Let's play Quantum Leap. And I'm really asking all the writers at this table to say, reach out to your fan base and say, what do you see? What would you like to see? Because we're into interactive, so bring it on. Inspire us, so we can inspire you.
Thanks, guys. Can I say what you guys?
Guys, thank you. Yeah.
So nice to meet you.
Nice talking to you.
By the way, it's beautiful. No, I was going to say that too. For spring, it's perfect.
Yeah. I know, after all this rain, we kind of need some.
All the spoilers right here.
Well, let me ask Raymond a quick question. Okay, so did you ever talk to Scott Bakula about, hey, like how do you approach this character, or any advice from him or anything like that?
No.
Not like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk to him one day, but yeah, no, not specifically.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So I meant to ask Deborah about this, but maybe you guys are good too. I kind of thought maybe how she was talking that this story might go well with like Choose Your Own Adventure. Like there was something that Netflix did a few years ago, and it was really a lot like that. And we kind of explored Ben and like how he, what he would do in certain situations.
Right.
And see if you would like pass or fail. Do you think that would be something you guys would ever pursue? Or?
I mean, I can certainly imagine doing an episode sort of with that as the storytelling device. I think that, the trick is first the episodes need to have heart and they need to be relatable. And I think the audience needs to see in the guest star a problem or dilemma they can relate to. So in Addison's father's case, for example, it's just a very dramatic version of, I need to take the car keys away from my older parent. It just so happens that in this case, it's not the car keys, it's battleship keys. So I think, we start with that and we find the dramatic setting, but with the right that and dramatic setting, I think a Choose Your Own Adventure leap would be a lot of fun, sort of the way the time loop leap was I think, a really fun episode, kind of a one-off.
Yeah.
I have a question for you on how you prepare your characters, because you've got the main one, but then every week you're jumping into someone new in a different circumstance. How far out do you have to kind of figure out that balance, and how do you approach that?
Sometimes we have episodes coming down the pipeline that a lot of people are really excited about, and the costume department hears about it, I think, first, right? Because they have to start gathering together things. And so I'll hear like in the makeup trailer or while I'm in wardrobe, it's like, hey, episode 6, you're gonna play a flight, like, so, and I'm like, oh, cool. So like, I have it in my mind, but I have to be so present with what's going on like right then and there. So I can't really think too much ahead, but it's just, for me, it starts while I'm getting my wardrobe put on and while I'm picking out, oh yeah, this pantsuit is right for the 80s and for a person of this place in their life, and I go, oh, and then we also play like theme music. Like if we're in the 50s, we'll play music from the 50s while we're getting dressed. So like, I just kind of get into and then when you're there, when you look at all you look at the set and you look at everybody and their hair's made up and they're wearing their period pieces, you're like, it doesn't take much, and there's all the imaginative work is done for you, so you just kind of have to rest yourself to whatever's happening. And hats off to our casting department and everybody our art department and everybody our set deck, costume, everybody who puts it all together, because now I'm just playing make-believe in another era, and it's very, actually not that hard for me to get into that.
Yeah, they're the unsung heroes of this show.
Yeah.
Because we have to create a new world every week while they're striking the old world every week.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible amount of labor, and they make it look easy, and I would love for them to get the recognition that they deserve.
Totally.
It's not the kind of show that normally does, but it's miraculous what they do.
I've never walked onto a set and thought like, well, they could have done better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're just crushing it.
Yeah. And they, like, each department, they're very enthusiastic about the work, and they have to be. Otherwise, it'll seem like a lot to do. But, like, they're like, oh, my God, it's the 30s. I know 30s hair. Or, like, I know 30s outfits. And every department is very excited about the work. So it makes it all very fun.
So fun.
I was actually in the background of an episode. I was playing extra during the
Oh, no way.
public defense.
Oh, yeah, right on, yeah. The courtroom.
Right behind you.
Oh, cool.
So random. So you're walking around in high heels.
You hated those shoes.
Those were painful.
Yeah,
The higher they
those
go.
are the worst ones.
Yeah, the closer to God, the more it hurts.
Was that one of, so that was going to be my question. Was that one of the more challenging, walking around?
Yeah, but it became its own bit too.
It did.
Because that episode was so fast-paced, and we wanted to show a window into the life of a public defender, and they have case files on top of case files, and it's an impossible feat to do all of this, and it's just running around in those heels. It just kind of became its own character choice, and again, the costume informs me.
Yeah.
So
we sit down and we're like, okay, he needs to be really uncomfortable as a public defender. So let's make the costume a little small. Let's make the heels a little high. We'll put some stones in them. Don't tell him that part.
Welcome. So my mom came to visit, and she watched that episode because it came out while she was here, and I'm in like the bathroom getting ready to go to bed or something, and she has the episode playing, and she goes, his feet hurt. like top of the episode.
Yeah.
I was like,
Facts.
you're right.
Have more like a girdle or something.
Yeah. Corsets. Let's just throw one of those on.
I wear Spanx for fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't everyone?
There's a whole lot of history we can send you to.
Oh, yes.
Well, I have kind of a fun question for you guys. I love period pieces, but if in real life you were able to travel to a different era in the past or future, where would you guys go?
Limitless? Like 100 years or?
Anywhere.
I don't know. There's so many. I want to see everything from the 1600s, right? Like that's really interesting, to ancient civilizations, and then modern, I don't know, maybe the 40s, 30s, 40s.
I think the 20s.
Yeah.
Just because it was so up and then so down.
So down.
Early 2000s for me. Simpler time. Like Sugar Ray
was cool.
was on the radio. That's when I peaked. Just want to go back to that time where I felt cool.
You just want to fly.
I just want.
Put your arms around me, baby. Put your arms around me, baby.
Exactly.
So cool in high school.
Yeah.
It was a little less annoying.
Yeah, I mean, it was the thing. It was it. Stone Temple, everything. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so this
Yep.
is for Dave.
Sure.
So there's there's an episode with Addison that we get more of her background, her
Mhm.
family history.
Mhm.
And then there's the episode where we get to know more of Jen and her history. Are there going to be any more episodes where we start exploring the characters' backgrounds, maybe more into Ben's character, kind of remember better or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. I think one of on our to-do list for season 2 is to really, now that we've set the table, everyone knows who these people are, and one mystery has closed, because we will close that mystery in the first season. We have the real estate to now start to look at these characters. And frankly, how does it feel to be someone who works at Quantum Leap, where every day you're changing history, but also you might not get your friend back? It's actually a pretty stressful job, if you think about it. And I think we're going to get to see all of our characters responding differently to what it means to not be sure what's going to happen next.
How do you approach the stories that you're creating? Because it does appeal to such a wide, like I am not a math science person, but my husband is all the computers, and we both get vastly different things out of the show and enjoy it together. So how do you approach that balance in the storytelling and also kind of like how and who you're appealing to?
Look, we have a terrific, diverse group of writers, and what's great when you have 10 different voices in a writer's room, you start with a basic premise like, this is going to happen this week, and then one person whose background is theater will be like, well, but this, and this, and then one person whose background is, sales has a different perspective. So it's really, our job is to take a little bit from everybody and weave it together so that it feels like it's just all of one piece. And it's honestly one of the most satisfying creative experiences I've ever had. One of the most challenging, too, to have to do it this fast, but incredibly satisfying, especially when you have these two and the rest of the cast that just make you look good no matter what you write. It just looks good, and it's believable.
Well, thank you. Unless, did everyone get a question? Okay, good. All right. Thank you so much.
Really lovely.
But did you get
The question.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we have one. It is cold. Everywhere else is not this cold. One more quick one with TV line.
Personality, I was like, I like them all.
Brother, I really appreciate that. Thank you, man. Yeah.
Raymond Lee, what?
I was worried. That's my heart. That's my heart. That's the show that first made me believe that I could lead anything. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Did you see it at MTC or South Coast? Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm the playwright too. And he's like writing Disney movies now. It's like I'm just so grateful for that whole thing. Thank you for saying that.
All right, guys, there you have it. We just met several of the cast and crew of NBC's popular reboot, Quantum Leap, available every Monday night or streaming the next day on Peacock. I'm Kambra Potter, and that's my entertainment. What's yours?